What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the first Descendant today, we are looking at Voltia, which is of course an ultimate beam rifle in the game. Now, I think those of you that have been a fan of my channel for a while will know that I have a hate-hate relationship when it comes to beam rifles. For the longest time, I have not enjoyed them as a weapon type. But that being said, the value of having Voltia in your arsenal is not to be underestimated. It's a fantastic weapon for some of the most difficult content that we have in the game right now. For example, Void Erosion, where you have enemies that have very durable elemental shields, and if you do not have the right element to counter those, then you oftentimes struggle to actually kill those enemies, whereas Voltia instantly cracks those shields and gets you to those juicy morsels inside. So whether you're doing Void Vessel or Void Erosion, this is super helpful. And while this is not necessarily a weapon that you would essentially run the entire time, meaning like you'll just use that to kill stuff, it's a fantastic thing to quickly switch to, pop some shields, and then carry on. And I think that its value will only increase once we see the last 10 stages being added, so 21 until 30, which is coming in the first week of February. So absolutely, I would say it's the perfect time to consider building Voltia and adding it to your arsenal so that you can be ready to hit that hard content when the time arrives. So just quickly, in case you aren't aware of exactly how its unique ability works, we can quickly have a look at that. Essentially, there's a lot of writing here, but what you need to understand is that this weapon excels at breaking shields, and when you do use it against enemies that have shields, it actually increases the damage that the weapon does. So it's a fantastic way for you to start a fight against a bunch of enemies. You can basically just hit them with this, it'll pop the shields, and then if you want to use skills against the enemies, you can. Or oftentimes it just makes the most sense to just keep the button in and just fucking mow or melt the enemies that are inside the shields with this as well, while you have the increased damage. This is a beam rifle, but it is unique in its way that it deals damage because it also actually chains to other enemies, which is really the reason why this gun is so good. It's the fact that you're not just shooting one enemy and hitting one enemy at a time, you're hitting a whole bunch. And these amounts that you can chain to actually increase with every level that you put into the gun. So when you have a 0 out of 4 Voltia, you have less targets that you can chain to. And then when you have a 4 out of 4, you're at the maximum where basically it chains to 6 targets, which is usually the size of a group of enemies with shields on them. They usually start around 2 to 3, and then I think they top out about 6 to 7 enemies that are all in a cluster together with shields on. So it's kind of like just enough for you to essentially bathe everyone in that lovely melty glory. When it comes to the actual modules that we're going to use to build this, we are of course faced with the age-old question of should we build for crit or shouldn't we? Now, looking at the base stats of Voltia, we can see that we have a 15% critical hit rate and a 1.5 times multiplier, but I still think while that's not like a bad per se basis to start from, I still think it's better to build for raw power with this, simply due to the fact that when we look at the unique ability, you can see that it also procs off of firearm damage, so raw damage is going to be better for us. So starting us out, we're going to do let's say the basic starting point for every single weapon in the game, and that is going to be action and reaction and rifling reinforcements. Now, usually our third one that we put in is fire rate, but fire rate is kind of like on beam rifles is, I wouldn't say it's a useless stat. It's definitely not a useless stat, but it doesn't carry as much value as it carries in weapons that fire projectiles. On beam rifles, yes, it does actually push your DPS up, but there are other better modules that we can use that actually increase our damage profile. So if you want to use fire rate, of course, feel free, and it is going to, you know, push your damage up, like I said, a little bit. At the very least, it's going to have like the placebo effect of giving you like the amount there. But we're gonna put some other mods on, and you can taste the difference and you can see. So then at this point in time, we've got our 2 fire attack modules in. We do see a slight increase to recoil here, but with beam rifles, YOLO. The next thing that we want to do is we want to focus on increasing the magazine size. Right now, it is fairly generous as a base start point at 42, I don't know, what do you say, 42 energy, 42 rounds in the magazine, because I mean, it's a fucking laser rifle, right? But we definitely have to increase that up, and one of the best ways of doing this is just using a blue mod called Expand Weapon Charge. That is going to take us all the way up to 62, and then what we can do is we can also take Compulsive Magazine over here, right? And that is going to take us all the way up to 78. Now, compulsive magazine does have a weak point damage minus 10% penalty though, but it's important to know that beam rifles can't hit weak points, so that's fine. Or at the very least, Voltia doesn't hit weak points because with its chaining effect. So stacking weak point doesn't really do anything for us, so basically we're good to go. Now, also, just quickly referencing here, you'll notice that Voltia's damage type is actually electric, all right? But it really is good with chill on it, and it's the way that I played it on Void Vessel, because on Void Vessel it is really, you know, it's the preferred element against those enemies. And so I kind of like stuck to my guns on that, and so we're actually going to put another element on here. Now what that means is you're actually going to be hitting two different elements at the same time. So you're going to have your electric element that's coming off of the gun by default, and then we're also adding chill to it. So we're actually going to do electric and chill. We're going to do both elements on. And the reason why I like chill is because chill's additional effect is the fact that it actually freezes enemies once you apply enough chill to them. And this is really good in the case of like a beam rifle, because you want to make sure that your attacks hit, and when you freeze something you could definitely hit it because it's basically standing still. The other thing as well is that when you're hitting targets, especially if it's chunky targets and stuff like that, you can give yourself some survivability in a way by essentially staggering the enemy and making them not be able to, deal damage to you. So chill enhancement is good for us here because 30% of our firearm attack goes on to chill as well, which is great. And then what I'd like to do is I'd also like to put chill priority on here, which is just further on going to blow up that chill attack by 50%. This does, however, tank our reload quite badly. And when we look over here, we'll see that without this mod, we have a reload of 2.5 seconds. And then with this mod in, we have a reload of 3.25 seconds, which is pretty brutal, to be honest. So I played like this for the longest time, just kind of like reload canceling and everything like that. But eventually I ended up settling on a blue mod called Recycling Genius. Recycling Genius actually gives you faster reload again, so it pluses to your reload time modifier, thereby making you reload faster and getting us back to that pretty much original 2.5 seconds, which it's weird how big a difference that makes, but honestly it just does. This, however, is flex slot worthy kind of type decision though, so if you rather want to put more damage in or something like that, and you just want to reload cancel the whole time and dodge and fucking roll and stuff to make the reloads go faster, then of course that's your own preference and you can absolutely do that. So now we've come together quite nicely here. We are now just going to stack raw damage. Now, because we're not worrying so much about building crit and crit damage, we can actually use something called charge amplification. Charge amplification gives us a pretty sizable chunk of firearm attack, but actually, kind of like kills our critical hit damage. But again, like I said, not really important because it's not something that we're focusing on. So now we have 2 slots left. And again, here there are some choices to be made. The first one is kind of like a no-brainer when it comes to beam weapons. So high voltage plasma is really good for us here for 2 reasons. First of all, it increases your electric attack. Now this weapon by default is electric damage, so it's good. It fits into the whole motif of the gun. But then it also reduces the target's defense by 1.5% up to 20 stacks. And this stack resets upon failing to hit the same target consecutively. Now, a lot of the times you're going to use Voltia to pop shields, but you could also decide to essentially pop the shield of like a tough yellow bar and then just completely lay into them. And this is where high voltage plasma comes in, because you're going to be able to reduce the defense of your target that you're hitting, and you're actually going to up your damage against them of the electric, variety. So it's going to just give you a nice little ramp. Speaking of ramp, for our last mod, we have 2 choices here. Okay, so I think it's perfectly fine to put sharp precision shot in there. What that does is it does lower your fire rate, but then when you're holding in the trigger, which you do by default with beam rifles in any case, you will be increasing your fire rate, reducing your recoil, which doesn't really matter, but also increasing your firearm attack. And as long as you hold this in, every 0.5 seconds, it will tick up to a maximum of 10 stacks. And that means that you are getting another ramp effect from this as well. I think this is perfectly fine to use. Sharp precision shot is a good decision if you want to use Voltia and you want to do, like I said before, you actually want to use it to kill the enemies that you pop the shields on, and these enemies might be tough yellow bars. This will be good ramp for you. If, however, you want to use Voltia just to pop shields and every once in a while just kill random trash, while your skills are, basically on cooldown or something like that, another really good option here is Sweeping Squad. So Sweeping Squad says when defeating an enemy, your firearm attack is plus 10.6% for 5 seconds at a 100% chance, up to 3 stacks. So you can get up to 30% additional firearm attack. And again, this synergizes really well with your unique ability, plus the fact that you are chaining onto enemies with this gun in any case. So you will almost instantly have your 3 stacks of this. So both of those are really good. Again, like I said, one is more for like, let's say, general mobbing on like low class enemies that don't really have that much HP to begin with, and this will just fucking chew through them. Or if you want to rather use this to, you know, deal with obviously shields, which you would do in any case, but then tough yellow bar enemies that sit behind those shields, then I think sharp precision shot is also pretty much a good idea. Remember though that Sweeping Squad is not that great if there's only ever one target that you're shooting at and no trash that can feed it, because otherwise you're basically not juicing up the gun. So this is the setup right here. And we are going to look at our weapon cores and just kind of like, you know, make that even better. But first things first, before we actually do that, let's go ahead and just talk substats quickly. Now, when it comes to the substats on my Voltia, of course, usually what you do is you absolutely take firearm attack, so that's a given. And then most of the time you go crit hit and crit damage. But since we're not stacking that here, I did end up just rolling crit hit damage like gold, and I was like, fuck it, okay, let me just keep it. But I focused more on the other 2 substats that I was looking for. So I was looking for chill attack as well on the weapon. So now we have it on the weapon and we have it added. So from a chill perspective, this weapon deals a shitload of chill damage. Then it's also dealing electric damage as well, like I said, because that's what the default is, as you can see at the top of the weapon there, okay? Then the last one substat is rounds per magazine. So this is just going to give us even more rounds. And when we look at the final, you know, sort of like score sheet here, we could basically see that our firearm attack is pretty high. Then our chill attack is almost right there with it. We have some electric attack as well. And then we can see our rounds per magazine is 87, which is really, really juicy on a gun like this. And it actually gives you a lot of laser beam, you know, life. To you know, in your magazine to deal damage with. So this is really good. I like this. And then last but not least, let's quickly look at weapon cores, because that's really, I think, where you are able to just squeeze out even, you know, more you know, damage here. So when it comes to Voltia has really good slots, except of course for the final slot, but it has a free augmentation, a firepower augmentation, an attribute augmentation, and a tactical augmentation. So for the free augmentation, you can choose anything here. I ended up going for firearm attack, and also in my firepower augmentation, of course, firearm attack. This is not really a weapon that you're going to use against Colossi, so, you know, bonus firearm attack against Colossus is not really the fucking jam. But 34% firearm attacks really elevate the damage profile of this gun. And look, it deals fairly decent damage already. This just actually pushes it, you know, to the fucking roof. And then for our attribute augmentation, of course, we could choose between all 4 attributes. Now, of course, the idea is that you need to match this with whichever attribute you have on your weapon. And it's also super important to know that this element must be the intrinsic element of the weapon, or it must be in the substats of the weapon. That is the only way that this counts and actually activates its damage. All right. So in our case, we have 2 choices. We could have gone with chill, or we could have gone with electric. Since chill is my one that deals more damage, or the one that I want to kind of like elevate its damage profile of, I ended up going for chill attack 95%. So really good there. That means this thing, stuff that's weak against chill, apps fold like fucking lawn furniture to this, and it's just really awesome. When it comes to the tactical augmentation, there's a few things here that are, I think, good. Reload time modifier is good because this gun reloads slow as shit. So if that's something that bothers you and you don't like reload canceling and you just want the fucking thing to reload faster, then there's nothing wrong with taking reload time modifier. I think rounds per magazine is also super strong for us because, again, you just have way more runway and way more beam in your gun before you actually have to do that slow ass reload. Fire rate is okay, but I wouldn't necessarily go for that. And then we have beam rifle charge gain speed. I'm not going to say anything about attribute status effect trigger rate because I don't really fucking, value that. Beam rifle charge gain speed is good for us because while Voltia, I believe, reaches it. So you know how beam rifles work is essentially they have stages. They have stage 1, 2, and 3, and you can see that next to the gun. When you hold it in, you can see it charging up. Now the higher the stage, the more damage the weapons deal. So it's in your best interest to get to stage 3 as fast as possible. Now Voltia gets to stage 3 faster than other beam rifles by default. It's just how it works. And you could put a module in to do this as well, but I feel like rolling it here on weapon cores frees up that module slot, and it means that you're going to get to stage 3 super fast, which means you get to your best damage window super fast, and more of your bullets are in stage 3 when they hit enemies. It feels weird saying bullets because it's fucking laser, but in any case, you know what I mean. So that's why I ended up going for beam rifle charge gain speed. But like I said, I think there's probably an argument to be made for rounds per magazine as well, which another 78% rounds would be fucking disgusting. But yeah, okay. And then for special augmentation, I say this on each one of the videos when we have this slot. This is the system, the way that the weapon core system works right now makes this a dumb slot, because the point is you have to roll that on your substats as well. So if you want to have this bonus firearm attack against the Order of Truth, you have to roll the same thing on your substats for this to activate, and actually it works the same as damage against Colossus. So that means that you would have to waste a slot on this. Now actually on Voltia there might be a reason to do this, since this is mostly the weapon that you use in Void Erosion and on the Void Vessel, right? So if it's the case of the Void Vessel, I think it's is it Order of Darkness? Guys, don't quote me on this, I forget. But like, for example, Order of Truth is like the stage 20 of the Void Erosion is Order of Truth, right? So you could easily see this by just look at which enemies it is and then go into the fucking lab and just see which enemies are within that group. But for instance, I could roll that onto it, but again, the point is you would have to pick. You'd either have to flavor this towards Void Vessel or flavor it towards Erosion. So maybe that's something that I'll try. Like, it depends on how hard it's going to be to get from 21 to 30. We're gonna have to just see that, but I might end up testing that and just seeing if that makes the fucking road a little bit less bumpy. But that being said, right, you can get just as far with just straight damage and just killing the enemies without having to spec into this. Again, like I said, enemies are gonna have to get way tougher for this to be something that you need to worry about, because by default you are just going to be, I mean, in the case of you know, the content that we're doing right now, most of the times you're killing the enemies with skills in any case. So, and basically Innes just fucking blows through everything, so I don't really see this being that much of a problem. But that being said, let's go ahead and see once wave 21 or stage 21 to 30 comes out, and we can kind of make up our minds then. But that's the weapon cores right there. As I've said, this is then the entire weapon, or the weapon in its entirety. It's the only beam rifle that I like, and when I say like, I mean I really like this thing. It makes your life super easy when it comes to cracking those shields, even in cases where like a character like a Descendant like Innes can usually just blow through those shields in any case because of the sheer fucking amount of raw damage that she can deal. This can just actually make the enemies a lot less sticky and kind of like, you know, save you some time and actually working your way from one side to the other. And time is of course super important in that new mode, so you know, it is what it is. But that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know which weapon you would like to see next. I've got 2 cooking. One of them is Greg, so I've got 1 slot open, so you guys need to let me know. I know some people have been asking for Excava, some people have been asking for Final Masterpiece, so it's got to be one of those 2, possibly something else. Let me know in the comments. But as always, fucking cheers.